The Georgia Bulldogs are undefeated, and they have a much-needed bye week this weekend before going down to Jacksonville to take on the Gators next weekend. And after Georgia's 55-0 drilling of Vanderbilt last weekend, I think it's safe that the Dogs may have the best quarterback room in the country. And I'll take it a step further. I think Carson Beck might be the best backup quarterback in all of college football. He was excellent against Vanderbilt last weekend. I'm going to break all that down to explain my reasoning as well. But first, I got to plug DoorDash. They're our sponsor now. For a limited time, our listeners over at Dog Post can get 50% off a $20 value and $0 delivery fees when you download the DoorDash app and enter code DAWG, D-A-W-G. That's how we spell dog these days. That's 50% off a $20 value and $0 delivery fees when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code DAWG, D-A-W-G. Don't forget, that's code DAWG, D-A-W-G, for 50% off a $20 value and $0 delivery fees with DoorDash. Back to Georgia's quarterback room, which is really unbelievable right now. If you've listened to us for about 3 years now, you know how good Carson Beck is because we've been on the Carson Beck train for a while now. 3 years ago, I went down to Jacksonville, and before Georgia's game against Florida, I believe it was 2019, I watched Carson Beck play as a senior, threw 4 touchdown passes in front of James Franklin, the Penn State head coach that was down there watching him, trying to get him away from Georgia. But he was excellent ever since I saw him play. I've said that this guy could lead Georgia to big seasons whenever he takes over. He had an opportunity to leave this past summer, didn't. He is a confident guy. He knows what he can do. He knows his talent. He knows that he can take this team a long way. And against Vanderbilt, we saw what he's capable of. 8 for 11, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was excellent. Dude was throwing darts. He looked great in the pocket. I think he scrambled for a 13-yard run. Again, he's got the pocket presence. He was throwing darts. First one to Dylan Bell, I think, for a touchdown was his third read. The touchdown pass to Eric Gilbert was in a place where, the perfect ball placement. I mean, he was covered pretty well, threw it kind of to his outside shoulder. The defender just could not get there because the ball was in a perfect spot. The ball he threw on the run to Kyrus Jackson, almost a touchdown. Kyrus' foot was barely out of bounds, but that was a dart. I mean, he's got a laser for an arm. I don't want to say every wide receiver, but a lot of receivers and playmakers on Georgia's offense, they like Carson Beck. And we've been told from a lot of people that he's the best thrower of the football on the team. He's learning to become a better quarterback, doing the right things, understanding what he has to do. And he wants to get out there and play. He is, again, he's confident. And Stetson Bennett is doing his thing. He was 24 for 30, 289, 2 touchdowns. Has looked a lot better since the Missouri game and even Auburn. I guess he struggled in that first quarter there, but he's starting to play better. But you can't go wrong with Carson Beck. I think they could win the East with Carson Beck if he's good enough to beat Tennessee, and I think he is. He's got the arm talent. You also have 5-star Brock Vandagriff, who hasn't seen the field barely except for handing the ball off. He was a 5-star for a reason. Gunnar Stockton, record-breaking quarterback in the state of Georgia. He's not playing anytime soon, but he's a guy who could take the reins one day and lead this team. He can run. He can throw. Brock Vandagriff, I've seen him plenty. If you go on our YouTube page, there's plenty of clips and highlights from him in high school. We saw him. He got better and better as his senior season went along. We know what he can do. Accuracy's got to improve a little bit, but Stetson Bennett has proven that he can lead Georgia to a championship. He's the guy right now. He's number 2 in the SEC in passing behind Will Rogers. I think I have that right. Yeah, Stetson has 2,033 passing yards, and then Hooker is right behind him. But Carson Beck can do it too. Carson Beck, let's see, I have his stats right here. He's thrown for 276 yards. He's already got 4 touchdown passes. For example, that's kind of a lot when you could look at what everyone else is doing in the SEC. Anthony Richardson has 6 touchdown passes. He's a full-time starter. Spencer Rattler, South Carolina, he's got 5 touchdown passes this year. He's a full-time starter. Brady Cook in Missouri, he's a full-time starter. He only has 5. Robbie Ashford at Auburn, he's got 4, same amount as Carson Beck. And Haynes King, the guy that they want to be the guy at Texas A&M, he's got 5. Carson Beck has 4. So he's I mean, Carson Beck has 4 touchdown passes, Stetson Bennett has 7. Carson can sling it around. If you're Missouri, would you rather have Carson Beck or Brady Cook? I'm taking Carson Beck. If you're Auburn, you would love Carson Beck on the team right now. He's the best quarterback. He's a better quarterback than Robbie Ashford. Vanderbilt would take Carson Beck in a hot minute. Texas A&M, don't tell me Haynes King is better than Carson Beck. I'm not going to believe it. I know he's got a lot of potential. He can run around. They recruited him for a reason. They liked him out of high school, whatever. He's not a better quarterback right now than Carson Beck. If you're Florida, I get that Anthony Richardson is a tremendous athlete. He has no idea where the ball's going when he's throwing it, unless he's throwing against Tennessee, where he throws for over 450 yards. But could Carson Beck lead Florida to a better record than Anthony Richardson? Possibly. Spencer Rattler? I mean, is he the guy in South Carolina? Would he be the guy if Carson Beck was there? I'm not so sure. LSU, Jaden Daniels? I'm not a big Jaden Daniels guy. Would Carson Beck be a better fit at LSU than Jaden Daniels? Maybe for what they run, Jaden Daniels is better, but he doesn't throw the football like Carson Beck. Again, I'm not saying he should be the starter or anything like that. I'm saying if he was, there's not going to be a whole lot of drop-off, I think. He can also run. Carson Beck moves better than people think. He was a tremendous baseball player. He's a really good athlete. And we saw him scramble, take off for, again, 13 yards against Vanderbilt. So I know it's against the Commodores, and I know when he comes in, he's facing defenses that aren't so great because Georgia obviously has their backups in. They're winning the game. They've already won the game by a mile, probably a quarter and a half ago. So he's not going up against elite defenses. I get that. But if you just watch him play, he's been ready. He's been prepared. He's just been waiting for his moment. And when he's been out there, he's been really good this year. And he was really good against Vanderbilt. And it just looks different. When the ball leaves his hand, there's more velocity, there's more zip on it than when Stetson Bennett throws it. So it looks a little easier when Carson's throwing the ball. It looks a little more natural, I guess. But Stetson's the guy, and he's going to be the guy the rest of the season. The only way Carson starts is if Stetson gets hurt or maybe throws 3 or 4 picks against Florida or State or Tennessee. I don't see that happening, but Georgia's in really good hands. Not only because they have a lot of talent behind Stetson Bennett, but because they've got Todd Monken coaching them, calling plays. Mike Bobo is there helping out. Buster Faulkner, who should be an assistant, getting paid a lot more somewhere else, but he does a very good job working with the quarterbacks and working with the offense at Georgia. So there's a lot of guys on the staff who know what they're doing, and they prepared Carson Beck. Hell, they prepared Stetson Bennett from, again, the story of him being a former walk-on and turning into a national championship caliber quarterback who's leading the team and making good decisions with the football. He's only thrown 1 interception this year. I think a lot of people would like to see the passing touchdown numbers increase, but when the points are there, and Georgia probably leads the country in 1 and 2 yard rushing touchdowns, so they're getting it down there. But when you're consistently at the 1, the 2, the 3, and you've got these backs and an offensive line that is playing really well around the goal line, of course you're going to run it. So a lot of small rushing touchdowns that Georgia has this year, it's going to take away from the passing touchdowns. But Stetson Bennett is having a good season. He's throwing 70%, 162 for 229. But I'll tell you what, Carson Beck looked really good against Vanderbilt. If there's a better backup quarterback out there, drop his name in the comment section. I know Texas has a couple guys that they like. Hudson Card is pretty good. I liked him out of high school too. I thought he would be the guy at Texas, but Quinn Ewers is their guy. So maybe Texas has one that's similar to Carson Beck, but again, Carson can sling it. He's always been able to sling it. I thought he was a lot better quarterback when Georgia got his commitment than people realized, but I saw him play in person years ago. He was really, really good. I've been on the Carson Beck train ever since. Thought he might start against UAB last year when JT Daniels was hurt. He didn't. Instead, Stetson Bennett got the nod, threw 5 touchdowns, and really just took the spot away from Carson. But I know that probably did not sit well with him. I mean, how could it? He's a competitor. He's a quarterback. He doesn't want to sit on the bench. Nobody does. But he's taking it in stride. He knows his time is probably coming next year in his 4th year. I expect him to have a monster season, but he can sling it. And we saw it against Vanderbilt. We'll probably see it against Georgia Tech. I don't know if we're going to see Carson Beck play against Florida, maybe in the fourth quarter. Don't expect to see him much against Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Kentucky, but we'll see. He's playing really good football right now, and I think there are multiple schools in the SEC and a lot more across the country who would love to have Carson Beck on the roster right now. I think he's probably the best backup quarterback in college football in my eyes. A little biased because I've known him a little bit and his family and his sources, people close to him in Jacksonville. So pulling for the kid. I know what he can do. Was very happy to see him slinging around against Vanderbilt, and I think Georgia would be in very good hands if Carson Beck were to be the guy for whatever reason. But right now it's Stetson Bennett. He's got Georgia undefeated and hoping to lead them to a second consecutive national championship. I want to hear your thoughts about it in the comments section. Again, thanks for watching this video. As always, stay tuned to the next one coming up right now. I'll see you over on Dog Post.